Hello and welcome to my little video on the way that I like to teach long division. I'll try to keep it as short as possible. Feel free to stop at any time if I'm going a little too quickly and just pause to allow yourself to go back and re-watch it. It's as much for students as much as parents too, so we can all be on the same page. So the saying that I use to help us remember how to do long division is, does McDonald sell burgers? Let me correct that. Does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers? And as long as McDonald's sells cheeseburgers, we're going to remember that saying to be able to do our long division. So the first thing we're going to do is when we say that saying, every time that we start a long division question, even if you're pretty sure you know what you're doing, I want you to go ahead and still write this down. That way, if you get lost or forget what step you're at, you'll already know where you've been and what you need to do next. So just follow along here. So does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers? And if it seems a little bit fuzzy, it's not you, it is my screen. It's the technology I'm working with right now. So don't worry, you don't need to go to the eye doctor yet. All right, so does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers? That stands for dividing, multiplying, subtract. So those are all mathematical operations. And then these two are just other parts of the process for long division. We're going to need to check a certain part, and we're going to have to bring a digit down. Okay, so at the top of your page, when you're doing a long division question, we're helping your child with it, much appreciated. This makes it easier from what I found to follow it step by step. So does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers? Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Or check and bring down, I'm sorry. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to learn it right from the start of doing dividing into a three-digit number. I think it repeats three times there, so it makes it a little easier for kids to see that really we're doing the same thing over and over each time, all right? So I would suggest the very first time as kids are getting used to it, I think it's easier if we divide by 2 or by 5, just because those facts come a little more readily for kids. All right, so here we go. Let's pretend I had 763 Smarties from the bulk bin at Co-op, and I want to share it with myself and a few other friends. So 5 people. We're going to divide 363 Smarties divided by 5 people. How many Smarties do each of us get? All right. So this is where I'm going to pick a different color of pencil marker, just while I'm showing you. I think it makes it a little clearer for each time we do it. So I consider this to be my recipe. If I'm baking or cooking in the kitchen, I'm not very creative in the kitchen, so I follow the recipe. It helps me to stay on track, and that way I get a good product at the end. And that's the hope here too. So each time we go through this process, I'm going to call it kind of like one round. When we get to the end of that round, we'll do another round, but I'll explain, okay? So take a deep breath before we start, and know that, kids, it's okay if you don't get this at first. That's totally okay, all right? So my first rule is no crying. If you're starting to get frustrated, remember, no crying. It's okay, all right? And I do mean that. It really is okay. If you are even right now getting the saying and you know what it means, you're halfway there, all right? So we'll just take this slow. Don't worry about it. Just put me on pause here if you need a little more time to think of what I just said. All right, so we're going to say 5 divides into, that's a big number. Let's make it a little simpler at first, okay? So I have some sticky notes here. So I'm going to just take a sticky note and cover up. We don't need to use these extra numbers right away, okay? So let's just cover those ones up. If you're working at home on a piece of paper or something else, I'd suggest just cover it up with your eraser, something like that, or eventually you'll get so you're just looking at that part in your mind, okay? All right, so how many times does... Okay, so let's start right here. How many times does 5 go into 7? So how many groups of 5 are in the number 7, the digit 7? There's only one group of 5 in a 7. So I'm just going to use a different color marker to make it a little easier for you to see what I'm doing. So it goes in one time. So we just divided right there. Let's make sure to check that step off. So our next step is to multiply. And here's a big trick, is whatever digit you just wrote down, you're going to always need it for your next step. So it's kind of like an escape room where you need to do one step to get to the next step. So if you're ever not sure what to do with that number, remember, you're going to use that digit in the next step. So multiply. Well, we have to multiply 1 multiplied by, it's always going to multiply by the divisor, okay, the number that's out front here. Sometimes I put a little multiplication sign right. My markers are not working with me today. All right, so sometimes I put a little multiplication sign there. It's really hard to see, but that's okay. You can just keep it in your mind too if that makes it easier. So 1 multiplied by 5 is 5, just like we've done all year long. 1 multiplied by 5 is 5. All right, so let's check off that step. We did it. All right, I want to see if I have a better marker. All right, our next step is subtracting. Well, we just wrote down this 5. There we go, that's better. We just wrote down that 5, so we're going to subtract. We're going to go 7, subtract 5. So let's write our subtraction symbol. 7 subtract 5 is 2. And notice how I'm keeping my numbers lined up vertically. That's really important to keep our work organized. I often find kids who keep it more organized make less mistakes because it's a little easier to keep it neat and stay on track. All right, the next thing we're going to do is check. We're going to check the number that we wrote down. We know that we're on the right track if this digit is less than the divisor. Okay, so is 2 less than 5? Yep, good. So we're doing well. We checked it and it's correct. Okay, now we're going to bring down the next digit in our number. So let's just move this over because we're ready for it now. All right, it's a 6 this time. So we're going to bring that number down only as far as our line there before our subtraction answer. Okay, so right there, my arrowhead cannot go past that line. So then the 6 is going to drop right down here. So we don't look at this as a 2 now or a 6. Now they're buddies. It is 26. All right, so check. Congratulations, you made it through one round of our recipe. We're ready for round 2, and it's the very same steps. I'm going to show you where we get started next. All right, this time I'm going to try my purple marker. Hope it's working enough. Here we go. All right, so we're ready to start with dividing again. Now the biggest, this is where most kids, if they're going to make a mistake, it's often right here because they think we're going right over to here. But right now, we're going to work with the 26. Remember, we just brought that 6 down, so it's 26. How many times does 5 go into 26? Well, it's actually not going to go in evenly, right? Because it doesn't end with a 5 or a 0. But if I remember 5 multiplied by 5 is 25, that would work. But 5 multiplied by 6 would be too big. That would be 30, and that would be too big. So how many times does 5 go into 26? Because we're dividing it, it's going to go in 5 times. Oh dear, here we go. There we go. So it divides in 5 times. All right, so now we wrote that 5 down. We need to multiply. So 5 multiplied by 5 is 25. Okay, so 5 multiplied by 5 is 25. There, that's working a little better. Good. Check. Make sure you check off your step. You worked hard to get it done, so you need to keep track. Our next step is to subtract. We just wrote down the 25, so we're going to subtract that number. So 26, subtract 25. We can adjust this a little bit. Here we go. So 26 subtract 25, 6 subtract 5 is 1. And 2 subtract 2 is 0. It's nothing. So you could write a 0 here, but you don't need to. Okay, I'm not going to, just to keep it a little more simple. All right, so we subtracted. All right, now we need to check. When we subtracted, is the 1 here, is it smaller than our divisor? Is it smaller? Is 1 smaller than 5? Yep, check. We're still on track then. That's good. If it's bigger, if this digit is bigger than the divisor, then it just means we have to pick a bigger digit to go up there. We didn't multiply by a factor quite as large enough. All right, so now we're going to go bring down. Let's see if there's another number for us to bring down. Oh, right here. It's the 3. And I don't need this anymore. Okay, and if I was at home, if I was on a piece of paper, I'd be using my eraser. All right, so let's bring the 3 down. And it stops. Remember, that arrowhead cannot go past that line. So it's kind of like bringing a friend down here for the 1. So 1, the 3 is going to come sit beside the 1. So it's no longer just a 1 or a 3. Now it's the number 13. So be sure to check it off. We did that step 2. Right on. We just finished round 2. I'm not happy with this 5. It's not showing up very well, but oh dear, I'm sorry. There we go. Okay, I'm going to go back to my blue for the next round. All right, so we just finished writing down 13. So we're going to divide. And remember where people sometimes forget to go? When you start the new round, you think how many times does the divisor go into the number at the bottom? That's really important to remember. So how many times does 5 go into 13? Well, I know 5 multiplied by 2 is 10. So that would work, but 5 multiplied by 3 is 15, and that would be too big, so we can't do that. So 5 multiplied by 13 divided by 5 is 2. Because we know 5 will go into 13 2 times. Oh, dear. Maybe I picked the wrong blue marker. I'm sorry here. There we go. All right, divide. We did that. So now we're going to multiply. And we just wrote down the 2, so that's what we're going to multiply. 2 multiplied by 5 is 10. So we write that down here. And let's just see right there. We go. Sorry here. All right, so we multiplied. Now we're going to subtract. 13 subtract 10. 3 subtract 0 is 3. I squeeze it in there for you to see. And 1 subtract 1 is 0. So I could write a 0, but I don't have to. Okay? So we subtracted. Now I need to check. Is this digit smaller than the divisor? Yes, 3 is smaller than 5. Check. So we're good. That's good. And then bring down. Do we have another number here to bring down? Nope, we do not. So instead, I can bring this number up. This is my final answer. Right here is 152. But I have 3 remaining. I have 3 left over. So if my check marks weren't in the way here, I'll just maybe erase them for right now. In the bigger space, I would just kind of have this off to the side. And I'm going to bring this one up. This is my remainder. So a shortcut, instead of having to write the word remainder, is just the R. And I have 3 remaining, 3 left over. So this is my answer. And an answer to a dividing question is called the quotient. And basically, if I had 763 Smarties shared evenly between 5 people, we would each get 152 Smarties with a remainder of 3. All right, I hope that helps. Take a deep breath. Take time to watch it over if you're not too sure about something. All right, good luck.